Get ready.
This is the voice of Wayne America.
Lighten up, Francis.
With your host,
Hi-ho, Kermit the Frog here.
Mike Carnes.
How do you measure yourself with other golfers?
By height.
Only at WayneAmerica.com.
The supernova's gonna kill us all.
Okay, this guy is the real zero, that's true. Just think back when you guys were freshmen, huh?
.com.
Hello and welcome to the Voice of Wayne America podcast, an exclusive here on WayneAmerica.com. I'm Mike Carnes, your host for all that is the best town in all of America. That's right here in Wayne America. And, we're kind of in the throes of summer, and as far as sports goes, there's really not a whole lot going on. So it's you're kind of in that dead zone, if you will, as far as the regular stuff that takes place in our community. And I thought, we're about a month or two away from the start of the upcoming fall sports season, and it'd be an opportunity to maybe sit down and talk with some coaches and talk about them. Not necessarily talk about their teams coming up, but talk about them as coaches and what they've gained over the years in experience and how they got started and things like that. And I was kind of inspired to do this. I was listening to a podcast the other day that I happened to pop up on my Facebook feed, and it just happened to be Joe Cleary, who's the women's soccer coach here at Wayne State College. And I thought, you know what, we should get Joe on the show here and have him talk a little bit on the local level about his interest in the sport and his involvement and what he's looking for as far as recruits and things like that. So with us on the program this week is Joe Cleary, the women's soccer coach here at Wayne State College. Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Now, was that first podcast that I heard you? Was that on the phone? Was that a phone podcast?
It was on Google Hangouts.
On Google Hangouts.
So this is the first.
Okay, so this is a
one
live
in person,
one.
yeah.
Okay, this is an in-person podcast that we're doing. So we're doing it from Joe's office here at the athletic office of Wayne State College. So, Joe, I know that you're in your coming up on your third year here as the head coach of the Wildcats, and I know you were an assistant for the previous coach here beforehand. Talk a little bit first off about getting that opportunity to come to Wayne State. What brought you here to Wayne?
Well, I was at the University of Mary as a graduate assistant coach under Sarah Cook, and I had just finished my first year as a graduate assistant, and normally graduate assistantships are 2 years. And as a graduate assistant, you have a monthly stipend of a couple $100. They pay for your grad school, and you usually work a couple jobs on the side. Mm-hmm. I coached youth soccer, high school soccer on the side, as well as I also worked at the hospital as a physical therapy assistant. And then I saw that this full-time position opened up down here. Coach Erickson and I had a mutual friend who I had worked for in Concordia College who said that Bruce was looking for people to apply. I applied, and it kind of happened pretty quickly and kind of late on. I officially got the job July 30th or something like that, so it was like 12 days before season started. So I moved down here, lived in the dorms, and kind of got going in Wayne America like right away once I got moved down here. So
you actually lived in the dorms when you?
Yeah, I lived in. I think I lived in Terrace Hall for 10 days until I found an apartment.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you weren't here in the dorms?
No, just the first 10 days.
Okay, yeah. All right. Well, now you said you had a connection with Bruce Erickson. Mm-hmm. Now Bruce came here from Creighton, which I think a lot of people were a little surprised at first to see a coach who had success at the Division I level want to come to Division II level. So that was kind of an interesting situation there when you guys came on board.
Yeah, and that was part of the biggest draw of the job initially was getting to work with someone who's had so much success and so much experience at the Division I level with a school that I had been familiar with being in the region, and also just Bruce's connections to players and coaches and just the game and what I was able to learn from him in 2 years and still continue to learn. Like I still talk to him on a weekly basis. So it was a great person to work under for 2 years, and it's been a great friend, and he's one of my mentors in terms of moving forward in the coaching world and just trying to get better as a head coach too.
Yeah. Now the job at Mary, was that your first college experience as a coach?
No, actually my first college experience was at the University of, my first college experience was as a student assistant at the University of Mary when I was 23 on the men's side. And then after that I moved to being a volunteer assistant on the women's side down at the University of Wyoming, which was probably the most interesting part of my journey up through the ranks. And then I took a paid assistant coaching position, which was very part-time up in Moorhead, Minnesota, with Concordia College, which is a Division III school, and I worked as a club director up there. And then I moved to the graduate assistant role because I just really didn't care for the club aspect at that time in my life, and wanted to get back into college. I wanted to do college, put the most of my eggs in that college basket. So I moved back to the University of Mary and kind of put all my efforts towards the college game with some youth and high school stuff on the side.
Okay. Now, going back to listening to that podcast, I seem to remember that your experience at Wyoming was kind of an interesting experience. Tell me a little bit about what happened there.
Yeah, so I worked for Coach Quadrato, who was the head coach there, and then actually my connection down there was Levi Evans, who was the assistant coach, or who was the head coach at the University of Mary on the women's side at the time I was there, and then moved to be the assistant at Wyoming. And I had looked for jobs coming out of graduation, undergrad, and couldn't find anything. And Levi called me and said, "Hey, this is an opportunity. Do you want it?" So I did. I packed everything. I had a Honda CRV at the time, and I packed everything I had, which wasn't a lot, into my CRV, and moved down to Laramie, Wyoming, and lived in a kind of a lower-end apartment with Levi, and I didn't have any furniture, so I had slept on an air mattress for a while, for a couple months in the summer, and we used like lawn chairs as our living room furniture, and it was interesting. I think the one thing my friends always make fun of me the most was my diet at the time when I was down there, because I didn't have a lot of money. So I would like eat the same thing for 2 weeks in a row. I'd do like oatmeal for breakfast, ramen for lunch, and cheese sandwiches for dinner. So not super healthy or super sustaining, but I worked a lot of jobs down there too. I did a couple things on the side, but I like coaching at the Division I level was awesome. I was all the way in on the program, and getting to interact with the players at that level was great, and it was soccer all the time. And when I loved it doing it for free, I knew that I could do it for money. So that was kind of how I really knew that, like 100% knew that I wanted to be a college coach after that.
Yeah, there's some of the experiences that you have when you're first starting out in your career, and you go back years later, and it's like, God, I survived on ramen noodles and cheese sandwiches.
Yeah, and part of the reason I want to, there's a lot of reasons I want to do a good job as a coach, but part of the reason I want to do a good job as a coach is because I don't really want to go back to sleeping on the floor and eating cheese sandwiches.
That's what drives you today, right?
Yeah, part of it, yeah.
Yeah, those early days, it's always fun to go back in your later years and say, yeah, I remember when we did this, and I had to survive on this.
Yep.
And, I had a similar experience a number of years ago. I was getting ready to move, and I was getting rid of a bunch of stuff, and I had this box full of paper. It was old bank statements and phone bills and things like that. And as I was going through and shredding all this paper, I come across this folder that has on it 1988 IRS tax statements. And I'm like, why would I hang on to my tax statements for 20 years? This was 2008. So I opened it up and I looked at it to see what my adjusted gross income that year was $5,200. And you think $5,200 for a year? Mm-hmm. How do you survive on that? But then you go back and think back to those times where back then gas was 90 cents a gallon maybe, and gallon of milk was $1. It was $5,200. You could buy you a lot more then than it does today.
And you learn what you need and what you don't too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You definitely learn what you can live on and what you can live without. So I guess going back to your desire to start coaching, what inspired you to get into coaching in the first place?
When I was done, I always tell people this. I didn't play collegiately. I didn't play collegiately on the NCAA or NAIA level. I played a couple years of club soccer, and I'll tell people this all the time. Like, I won't try to lie about how good of a soccer player I was. I was an average soccer player in North Dakota, which means you're probably pretty below average in terms of the landscape of the national soccer scene. But my first year of college, I didn't really do anything soccer. And then I realized after being away from it for a year that I wanted to do something soccer again. So I started coaching youth soccer players. Really liked it. Started coaching more youth soccer. Got into high school coaching. And, you know, again, when I started coaching high school, I emailed every coach when I was living in Fargo that I wanted to coach high school. I would volunteer, and only one school emailed me back, and that was West Fargo High School. Doug Millar, who's not coaching there anymore. I think he's retired from coaching, but he gave me my first shot, and I think he thought I was just going to kind of hang around a little bit, but I ended up being like at every practice for every team and every game, and he probably thought I was annoying at some point. But
or you didn't have anything else to do.
Yeah, he thought probably both of those things. So, but yeah, I learned that I really wanted to do it, and I just got hooked. It was soccer all the time, watching games, going to games, reading stuff about soccer, studying, learning more about the game. So,
And soccer is kind of it's a sport. I tell people soccer is a lot like wrestling. When you're talking about from a fan perspective, there aren't a lot of people that are like on the fence, like in basketball or football. Football. Some people say they like the pro game more than the college game. Some like college better than pro. Soccer and wrestling are two sports where you either like the sport or you don't. There's nobody sitting on the fence when it comes to soccer. What is it about the sport that you enjoy as an enthusiast of the sport, not necessarily as a coach?
Oh yeah, as a fan, I think the passion for the sport is it can't be topped really. Like in the world, soccer has started wars in the world. Soccer has mended rifts between countries and cities, and just how much it means, how much the sport means, and how passionate it is. And I think, some people talk about how much, some people don't like how there's so little scoring in soccer, but that's why it means so much when you do score the goal, and that's why you see the celebrations in those 1-0 games, because that one goal can mean the difference in a lot of things, not just the trophy, but pride and like being a legend for the club or the legend for the country. So I just think the passion for the sport and then just the little nuances that you can see, and I think it's the same with any sport. Like if you really like the sport, you're watching it on TV or you're watching it live, and you'll notice things that you really enjoy about the sport that maybe other people won't pick up, and you'll be like, oh, that was really good by that player, and most people won't catch that. So
it's really kind of a game of chess on a large field.
It's really it's philosophical. We were watching the game the other day, and someone asked if soccer had plays, and they don't. Other than on like free kicks and corner kicks, but there's not really a dead ball, so it's a lot more philosophical and a lot more. How you control the space of the field and how you control the possession of the ball. Those are the two things you need to dictate to do well in soccer.
Yeah, and you see a lot of things that happen during the course of a game that I remember a coach telling me one time. Sometimes a 0-0 game is more entertaining to watch than a game that has a lot of goals. A 6-0 game or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's been more. I mean, the U.S. won 13-0, and while that was fun to see a lot of goals, it certainly wasn't an entertaining game in terms if you're a neutral fan, if you didn't care who won out of the U.S. or Thailand. And there's been lower scoring games this World Cup. The earlier in the day, the Netherlands-New Zealand game was way more exciting, and that was only a 1-0 game.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as opportunities for both teams and back and forth and how the game was played, that was a lot more exciting. So yeah, it doesn't always dictate based on scoring on if the game's exciting or not, but it certainly helps.
Yeah. Well, while we're on the subject of the World Cup, that's gotten started this week, and I know that U.S. started out their World Cup with a big win over Thailand, beat them 13-0, and most goals ever scored in a game by a team in the Women's World Cup. I think one of the players had 5 goals in the game, which I think tied a single game record for a player. Mm-hmm. And then there was a lot of talk afterward about, I think particularly after they started scoring goal 7, 8, 9, that they were still celebrating as if they'd scored their first goal. And I think there were some people that were made a little disappointed with how they were reacting to those goals. But and we were talking beforehand, before we started this recording that there may come a situation where the U.S. might be tied with a Sweden or whoever else is in that pool with them, and they come down to tiebreakers, and 13 goals might seem like a lot, but the more you score, the better, because that goal differential can be a difference as whether or not the team advances in at one half of the knockout round or another.
Yeah, and I think, that's exactly it. Is the goal differential? Unfortunately, that's the rule in FIFA. That's the tiebreaker. So you have to play to that, and that's the tiebreaker in the United States in terms of regional events too. When I was coaching younger players when they're 13, 14, we would go to these regional events with the North Dakota team, and we weren't very good, and teams would beat us, and they would try and run up the score because the top team, only one team out of the pool came out, and it was goal differential. If you beat us 6-0 and the other team only beat us 4-0, well, you're going through, and that happened one year. And the difference was goal differential, and once because one team didn't score enough goals against us.
Uh-huh.
And then I definitely understand people's maybe not liking the celebrations. I think it's hard because there were four players that scored goals in that game, that it was their first World Cup game ever. So it was their first World Cup goal ever.
Yeah.
And then that's certainly, whether it happens in a 1-0 game or a 10-0 game, that's got to be exciting. I would imagine that is how I would react if I scored my first World Cup goal if I ever played. I guess I can't begrudge the celebrations too much because I don't know what it's been there, but I think the result was hard anyways, and that just happens in international women's soccer because of the lack of funding in comparison. I mean, they've been in the news for equal pay and equal rights with the men's team, but I'm not saying it to justify that they shouldn't get that, but the U.S. are in a much better situation than teams around the world and in our own region. I mean, Jamaica's coaching staff doesn't get paid to coach.
Yeah, I think this was Thailand's fourth World Cup game ever. That they've been to the World Cup one other time, and their level of play obviously nowhere near where the U.S. is defending World Cup champion and has won it three or four times.
It's just unfortunate that happens. You don't want to see it, and we're hopefully results like that don't drive us to critique the U.S. too much, but it leads to the critiquing of the system, and hopefully it leads to more funding and more support for countries like Thailand so that they can improve, so that doesn't happen 4 years from now, 8 years from now, 12 years from now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. We're talking with Joe Cleary, the women's soccer coach here at Wayne State College on the Voice of Wayne America podcast. I wanted to take a moment to remind moms, dads, grandmas, grandpas, and even Aunt Sally and Uncle Earl that you don't want to miss out on the school year the 2018-19 school year photos. Don't let procrastination get in your way. Order photos now from the Mikey C. Productions photo website at MikeyCProductions.com. Click on the photos link and you'll see the link to our photo website where you can order digital or print images, or you can even get something special put on a coffee mug, a deck of playing cards, or a phone case. You can have a picture of your favorite athlete or even your favorite kid. And just between you and me, if you're the parent of one or more kids, you do have a favorite. At least my parents do, so don't tell my sister. She thinks she's the one. Don't tell her that. Sports photos done right. Check them out at Mikey C. Productions website at MikeyCProductions.com/photos. Talking with Joe Cleary from Wayne State College here on the Voice of Wayne America podcast. We were talking about your getting into the coaching and stuff, and I think you've talked a little bit about some of the people that helped you get started. Who are some of the coaches today that you've seen you maybe want to emulate some of the stuff that they do or some of the philosophies that they have in their coaching?
I mean, I think, I've mentioned a couple people, obviously Bruce and Pete, or Coach Grotto, and both Dave and Sarah Cook back in Bismarck, and Levi Evans when he was in Bismarck and at Wyoming were helpful, and Tim Green. So I have several people that I know personally, and Ben Schneeweiss at Concordia. So it's all a lot of the people that I've learned from, I want to take the best things I learned from them and kind of put them together. I'm a big believer though in not just sticking with soccer and looking at coaches from other sports and trying to emulate and take things from them. One of my favorite coaches in all sports is Buzz Williams, who's at Texas A&M now. He was at Virginia Tech and was at Marquette. I just like how he does things, how he works with his players and how he treats his players and the lessons he tries to teach them and the energy he has. So he's a big one. I like Greg Popovich. From the San Antonio Spurs. I like I'm a big Husker. I'm a Husker fan, Husker football fan.
That's
I was
always good.
I was a Scott Frost fan growing up as a football fan, and now I'm a Scott Frost fan as a coach. I was a fan of his when he was at Central Florida too. So I just think he does things the right way, and I don't know too much about what PJ Fleck does at Minnesota, but I envy how energetic he can be all the time, 100%. So coaches like that, but I think like my favorite soccer coach is the coach of my favorite professional team, Liverpool. It's Jurgen Klopp. I just think it's his style of play that he likes to have his teams play, but also how he manages his players and treats the people he works with and works for and all of that. So like those are some people in the sporting world that I really like.
That had to be, as a Liverpool fan, that had to be kind of a disappointing end to the Premier League season. You're so close to winning the league championship, and Manchester City just had a little bit more at the end.
Yeah, they won. Manchester City I think won 14 games in a row at the end, which is incredible. And like Liverpool had the 4th best season in Premier League history and takes second. I've watched them take second 3 times now in my life, and I really hope. I mean, they won the Champions League, which was nice. It's a really nice consolation, but I've always wanted to see them win the Premier League, and it just came up short just again. So that was tough, and a lot of my friends made sure to remind me that they took second. So.
I don't know if you saw the story. There was a story on ESPN.com about the Liverpool community, and how much they were banking on or were hoping for that championship, because that town or that area of England has gone through so much. There's been a lot of violence in that community. They kind of feel like the monarchy in London doesn't care, doesn't want to acknowledge Liverpool's existence, and Liverpool's kind of the same with them, and it was just a really cool story to read through. And it kind of almost made you want to root for Liverpool to win it. A few years ago I started following Premier League, and I picked Chelsea.
Okay.
I just picked them because they wore blue. And
Gotta stick with the Wayne Blue Devils colors.
Well, yeah, I was kind of thinking color schemes and everything, and so I chose them, and they've had a lot of success, not coincidentally, since I've chose them. But it was just a great story to read about that community and about what that team means to that community.
Yeah, Liverpool's a really interesting community, and I think there's a lot of stuff to read out there. I would recommend people checking out the ESPN 30 for 30 on the Hillsborough tragedy, which explains more about some of the stuff that's happened with the town and the club. But yeah, that club means a lot to that community, and it embodies that community. It's a rough and tumble place in areas of Liverpool. I've always wanted to go, but I haven't had the opportunity. I've had a couple friends who've gone, but that's a place I need to get to eventually and go see a game before it's too late.
Yeah, no kidding. Talking about yourself as a coach, you have had a couple years now as a head coach. You've had some years as an assistant as well, and have had an opportunity to kind of learn how to go out and find kids. That's in high school level they just show up pretty much either from their club or in the school. But when you get to this level, you got to go out and find the kids. When you're looking for a kid with talent who can fill a role on the team. But what kind of a kid makes a good Wayne State soccer player?
I think first and foremost it has to be a kid who's interested and wants to be here. Any kid you have to convince. I think you have to sell the school, but any kid that you have to pull and pry and, hey, this is definitely the best place for you, it's not going to work in the long term. I think you need a kid who's a good student. I mean, we have a good team GPA, 3.6 overall. I think that's really good, not just for student athletes, but just students in general. So they have to be a good student, and they have to be a hard worker and have to want to be about something bigger than just themselves, because we come up against really good teams. The Northern Sun is the Northern Sun, I think, is the best sports conference in the Division II. I think in all sports, like top to bottom. you look at what our sports do, baseball, softball, basketball, soccer, football, all of those, track and field. We have a tough conference, and soccer's no different. And if you are a team of individuals, I know that sounds cliche, but especially our program, you can't be a team of individuals and win. You have to really, really be a team, and have to want to be a team and want to be about the team and the program. So if we can find players like that, that's none of the athletic or skill-wise stuff. That's all stuff that is up in your head and kind of your personality. And then as far as talent and athleticism, I want kids who are going to get better. I don't want to recruit a final product who's the best they're going to be as a freshman. I want them to be the best they're going to be when they're juniors and seniors. So willing to work in the weight room, willing to work in their conditioning, and just willing to do more than what we do in practice or what we do as an organized team activity.
Mm-hmm. Do you find it tough to have a kid who maybe might be the best player on their team? Does that kind of player make a player that you'd want to recruit?
I think that's the toughest part about college in general, is you're combining kids who are all the stronger players on their, whether it's on their high school team or their club team, and maybe not used to sitting the bench, maybe not used to having to switch positions for someone else or to try and play something new to get more playing time. And then you have to bring them all together, and so I think that's hard in general, because you want to recruit good players, but you also have to recruit players who understand the level and understand what the college game is about. But that's one of the hardest parts, is bringing together a lot of really good players who aren't used to being subbed out of the game or not used to not starting consistently. And so I think we usually don't get, if at the highest level of club, we don't get the best player on every team, but we'll get some top players who their freshman year they're in the office saying, I didn't realize it was going to be this hard. So it's always interesting, that dynamic, for sure.
Yeah. And when that player comes in, it says, Coach, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. How do you, I guess, talk them off the ledge, or because I'm sure that's one of the first things that they think is that I'm not the best here, and if I can't be the best here, I don't want to be here.
Right. I think just always finding out what they weren't ready for was a lot of times it's the physicality. The college game's a lot more physical than high school and club. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's the speed of play, and it's just reassuring them that. And I think that's important, is when we bring players in, we don't just bring players in for fun. We bring players in because we believe that they can be a part of the program and do something for our program. In some regard, they can fill a role in some regard. So just reassuring them that, it's tough now, and it might not be the role you want now, but we're not just looking for now. We're looking for, how are you going to be in 2 weeks? How are you going to be in 2 months? How are you going to be in next year, in 2 years? And reassuring that we brought you in for a reason. It's going to be all right, and we just got to keep working hard, and we'll get you to where we want to get you. Because the players who end up being good, the better players in high school, are the better players in high school for a reason. It's not just because they're talented; it's because they have some of those X factors, and if they can keep harnessing, that competitive attitude, that killer instinct. They might struggle right away as freshmen because they're coming up against a lot of other players that have that. Mm-hmm. But by the time they're sophomores, juniors, and seniors, they'll click back in, and they'll get used to it, and they'll be, hopefully what they were relative to their high school team, but now relative to a college team. Yeah, and that's kind of what we look at.
Yeah, it always seems to from my experience of watching athletics over the years, a kid who has a ton of success at the high school level doesn't understand that there is a quantum leap from high school to college. Yeah. And I've seen that in a lot of, but I see it especially in wrestling, where kid is just dominates everybody for 4 years on the mats in high school, but then he gets up in college and he's wrestling men at this point, because those guys are guys who have been in the program for 2, 3, 4 years and have gotten infinitely stronger and better. And I think the same goes regardless of what sport you're talking about. And then those incoming freshmen need to realize that they're not the big man on campus anymore. They've got to kind of be able to figure out that they're still this far away from being at that that best level again.
Yeah, and I think it always depends on where you're playing in the country too. I always use North Dakota as an example because that's where I played high school soccer. That's where I coached a lot of high school soccer, and so I know what coming out of high school there is like. And in North Dakota high school, there's 14 or 15 teams now, and 8 of those teams make state. So about half or more than half the teams in the state make the state tournament, and it's not as difficult to make the state tournament in North Dakota as it is in, say, Minnesota, where you might have 15 teams in your section. And then you're playing the sectional tournament, and you have to win 3 or 4 games in a row in that tournament just to get to the state tournament at all. And that's not how it is in other states. And you know, and even you get farther to the coast where there's even more population, it's even harder to make the state tournament and harder to win the state tournament. And so just looking at the team dynamic, you know, take that to the player. There might be a kid who's first team all-state in one state, and there might be a kid coming from Minnesota or Nebraska or Colorado, and especially Colorado, Minnesota, where it's even more population, who they might not be first team anything, second team anything. They might be a really, really good player. They just are surrounded by lots and lots of really
other
good players. Yeah.
Yeah. We're talking with Joe Cleary here on the Voice of Wayne America podcast. Just kind of close things down. About 6 weeks or so away from the start of the fall season and first day of practices. And I guess what can we look for Wayne State this fall for soccer, you think?
I think it's going to be an interesting season. I honestly don't know what to expect. We're in the process of hiring a new assistant coach because Coach Pekarsky got the head coaching job at Hastings College. And, you know, so we're bringing in a new assistant coach, and we're also bringing in 12 new players as freshmen. So we're not a new program, but we have a lot of new faces. We're going to have a lot of new faces in that program. So it's going to be up to, I think, myself and a lot of the returning players to hopefully continue the culture and continue that competitiveness. And I do think we're going to take a step forward in what we did last year. I'm expecting to hopefully win a few more games and be even more competitive. I thought we were competitive in every game last year, but just being even more competitive in every game that we play. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I'm really excited. It's kind of unknown, but that's part of why coaching is exciting. Is it's fresh and new, and it's unknown, and hopefully we can take it and run with it and do the best we can.
I know the last I've been here 10 years, and I know the last 4 or 5 years with you and with Bruce beforehand, it's probably been as competitive as Wayne State has been in soccer for a while. We've had some down years there for a while, but I know Bruce coming in was able to kind of get things turned in the right direction, and you obviously are trying to continue that and keep us going. It is entertaining to watch. If you haven't seen Wayne State soccer play, get a chance to watch them some weekend. They're a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean our players. Yeah, Bruce jump started the program and got going in the right direction, and now I'm just really working really hard to get us over that edge. We're right on that edge of being a lot more competitive and a lot better. But yeah, our players work hard. I mean, if you might not understand soccer. But our games are exciting, and you get to sit real close to the field, just like you do in basketball, because we play on our grass field, so you can get right up close to the action. And our girls play hard, and unfortunately, sometimes there's a lot of goals for both teams in our games because we like to play a little bit wide open. But hopefully more goals for us and less for the opponents this year coming up.
Yeah, maybe we can have a couple of 13-0 games this year.
That would be awesome. I would take one 13-0 game. So.
All right. Well, we've been talking with Joe Cleary from Wayne State College here, the women's soccer coach, and looking forward to the upcoming season. Joe, thanks for taking time to talk with us on the program.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
All right. That's going to do it for this edition of the Voice of Wayne America podcast here on WayneAmerica.com. Again, I want to thank Joe Cleary from Wayne State College for talking with us here on the program. We'll have another edition of the Voice of Wayne America podcast coming up here very soon on WayneAmerica.com. So check back. And until then, we will see you later.